Hey, it's me, Vicki Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world. So it's another crazy Tuesday. The world it just gets crazier every day, doesn't it? It's not getting better, it's getting worse. But anyway, here we are. We haven't had a nuclear bomb go off. I suppose we count ourselves lucky these days. If you wake up in the morning, there's not been a nuclear bomb gone off anywhere. Anyway, I hope you're all well. Hope you're all looking after yourself. Um, anyway, I'm sorry I'm on the avatar today. I'm just not organised this morning. Uh, I did get up early, but I just haven't been able to get myself organised to do my hair and put my face on. So I thought I won't subject you to the way I look this morning. I will put on the avatar and save you from that. So, we can't get over this case, can we? This case this Nancy Guthrie case, just days go on. One day leads to another. No news, no real news. More experts on podcasts giving their theories. Expert says this and expert says that. Ex-detective says this. Ex-FBI agent says that. But in the meantime, real news coming out about this case is absolutely non-existent. And the only news we have coming out really properly about this case is how the streamers are all arguing between themselves. The neighbours are getting annoyed and reporting the streamers. And then the police, the sheriffs are going around there and removing cameras that have been put there outside Nancy's house over there in Tucson. It's all drama, isn't it? It's all drama and no news about the actual investigation. And we've even got streamers accusing people and actually putting out their names and photos online. And then we've got even the people that are being accused coming on and making comments and saying, I had nothing to do with it, leave me alone. It's just a right mess, isn't it? The whole thing is a right mess. But, we don't want to let go of it because we keep hoping. We all want to know what's happened to Nancy. We hope for good news. There's not likely to ever be any good news come out in this case, but you never know. But at least some news, like some resolution for her family, knowing where she is, being able to put her to rest decently. As I've said before, I just don't know how these families get up and put one foot in front of the other in the morning when they don't even know what's happened to their loved one, where they are, what's happening to them, what they went through, what they're going through now. Just this endless not knowing what's going on is bad enough for us, never mind for them. So just having a slurp of coffee, my second coffee of the day. So yeah, that's where we are. So but I don't want to sort of just let this case go. We want to keep Nancy's name out there, and you feel like the whole news about this case or the whole situation around this case is almost being strangled. It's like, I know it's an active investigation and maybe it is unhelpful for people to, make suggestions about what happened. It's certainly unhelpful, I think, to accuse people literally and put their faces and their pictures out there. I don't think that's helpful at all. Apart from anything, you think people could be sued for that. Can't you be sued for that? If you put if I put somebody's picture up there and said, I think they've got gave their name and everything so they could easily be found and harassed without any evidence. Isn't that illegal? Surely. Well, it should be illegal if it isn't. Anyway, this is the sort of thing that's going on. Now, we've talked a lot about different theories. We've got the theory of she's gone to Mexico. We've got the theory that it's someone close to home. We've got that is responsible. We've got the theory that she's round about the area. Oh my God, she could have been beamed up into a bloody spaceship for all we know. You know, it's just as feasible a theory as any other, I suppose. So many different theories, but basically none of us know what happened to Nancy. But a theory that I just want to look at that I haven't looked at so far is has the disappearance of Nancy got anything to do with Savannah? Of course, her daughter Savannah, who is a famous journalist, has the disappearance. Let me just put up a picture of Nancy actually. Don't forget, so no news about what's happened, even though we've got this quite a clear picture of this person who was seen on the door cam at her door on the night she disappeared. Now, her daughter Savannah, of course, is a famous journalist, and there has been, thoughts that maybe it's something to do with Savannah. No, I don't mean that Savannah did it. I mean that it was some sort of retribution against Savannah. This was Savannah on her first day back on the Today Show. She's gone back to work. She's gone back to being a journalist on the morning show over there in America. Was it to do with her? Is it some sort of retribution towards her? And then another theory that is, as I say, just as likely as any other theory, is that it has some sort of connection with the Epstein files. And, why do people think that? Because Savannah, she interviewed all the Epstein survivors, or not all of them, but many of the Epstein survivors, and particularly Virginia Giuffre, who, of course, is probably the most well-known Epstein survivor. She gave an interview to Savannah on the Today Show, I think it was 6 years ago. And some people are saying, is it connected? Because now, of course, since that interview, at the time when Virginia Giuffre gave her interview to Savannah, I think the Epstein survivors were still being looked at on a little bit with disdain, almost. Virginia Giuffre, there's always been a lot of people thought, she was making it up or I don't know, after money or whatever. Now I don't think people think that because, of course, we know so much more now about the Epstein files. We've seen the depth of the depravity. Prince Andrew was stripped of his title. Got Peter Mandelson was arrested. Prince Andrew was arrested. Not that anything's happened to them, and probably nothing will. But, it has had big repercussions. So it is back in the limelight, or it was until the war anyway. Now we've got a war going on, another war. So that sort of took over, didn't it? All the talk about Nancy and the talk the talk about the Epstein files, but that isn't going away. The Epstein files isn't going away. It might go quieter from time to time, but now we know more about the depth of the depravity, and we know that Virginia was telling the truth. And poor Virginia, she's no longer with us on this planet. I mean, the Epstein files has got a trail of bodies behind it, hasn't it? You've got Epstein himself, who supposedly took his own life. No one really believes that. Does anyone believe that he actually did take his own life? You've got the Brunel guy over in France. He supposedly took his own life. There's like a list of, and then Virginia herself supposedly took her own life. And all by Hanging, which is the easiest way to cover up a murder. It's a common way that people try and cover up murder. Strangulation and then followed by Hanging, and then making it look like self-deletion. It's quite common. But anyway, it's more common than you think. The problem is, I suppose, the people that get away with it, we don't get to hear about, do we? There's probably lots of people out there who've got away with it. And we do get to hear about some people who don't get away with it. If you've got a good forensic examiner who, when it comes to the autopsy, realizes that there's more to it than meets the eye. So people do get caught out sometimes, but probably loads of people have got away with it, to be honest, over the years. So the general feeling is likely that Epstein did not do it to himself, which then leads you to believe, did the guy Brunel do it to himself? Did Virginia do it to herself? Anyway, 6 years ago, Savannah Guthrie, she interviewed these Epstein survivors, and that's what we're going to watch in this video. We're going to watch part of the Today program where she's talking to Virginia and talking to the other survivors. And is it possible that it's true that this is some connection with the Epstein files? Maybe some resentment, maybe some sort of cover-up conspiracy. Nothing. I think it's a sign of the times that we live in, that nothing seems unlikely, does it? Like literally, if tomorrow found out that it was an FBI cover-up, it wouldn't be a surprise. That's awful, really, when you think about it. That nothing surprises us anymore because there's so much goes on behind the scenes. Years ago, we never got to know really about anything except what was presented in the mainstream media. And we just took it as gospel, didn't we? Now we sort of challenge everything, maybe over-challenge a little bit. I don't know. So now it's got to the point where we don't believe it, even if it's true. You just can't. You can't divorce fact from fiction these days. But yeah, I think it's just as possible that poor Nancy. What would it be? Why would it be though? Like if it was connected with Epstein, what would it be about? The reason. There's always a reason for everything. People do things for a reason. Nobody does anything without a reason, even though it might not be a reason that I understand or you understand. Everything we do in our lives, we do it for a reason. And so to me, the thing about Nancy's disappearance is find the reason, and then you find the perpetrator rather than the other way around, personally, because I think it's harder when it's an obvious reason. It's easier to solve cases. When it's an obscure reason, one that we can't personally understand, it's harder to solve the case, isn't it? When police start investigating a case and they start with the family and then they work outwards, they'll look at money reasons, love triangles. They're the most common reasons that people commit crime, is money or sex, isn't it? Or custody issues. So probably none of these really count with Nancy, but retribution is a possibility. Retribution is another possible motive for crime, isn't it? I mean, there's some crazy crimes go on out there that when you look at them, you just think, why did they do that? People lose their mind sometimes. Not in this case. This isn't a case of somebody losing their mind, I don't think, not spontaneously anyway. This is a planned crime. It's been planned. It's not just somebody, in the heat of the moment doing something. This was planned. Why it was planned, I don't know, but it's been planned, hasn't it? Okay, so before we look at the interview, we're going to look at the interview that Savannah did with the survivors, and especially with Virginia. Every time I watch Virginia now, I just feel so sad for that woman because, she had either taken herself away from this world or somebody had taken her away from this world before her book was published. before Andrew got stripped of his titles, before she started see it, she didn't get to see the dominoes falling, unfortunately. We're seeing it happen. There's a long way to go, I think, still. We still want to see men held responsible, put in prison, not just Jeffrey Epstein all those years ago, and now he's, facing another sort of justice. And then apart from him, really, there's only Ghislaine who's in prison. Andrew's not in prison. He's just had to move from one mansion to a slightly smaller mansion that was all redecorated for him moving in, so he's not exactly receiving any punishment, is he? Mandelson hasn't received any punishment. Nobody's getting any punishment. Anyway, don't get me going on that because it just makes me so angry. And there's Charlie Boy going off to America to bloody see Trumpy, who's mentioned God knows how many times in the Epstein files. But recently Melania said, oh no, we didn't know him. We didn't know Jeffrey Epstein. Oh God, give me a break. Anyway, so unfortunately for Virginia, she did not see this all happen because she either, as I say, took herself away or somebody took her away from this planet. And it's her that set the whole thing in motion. I do think if it wasn't for Virginia Giuffre, we wouldn't have got to know about everything that's happened. Because the other girls, although they're coming out and talking now, they're coming out and speaking because of Virginia. Virginia put herself out there and she put up with a lot of flack. She put herself out there and took so much hate from people. But thank God she did, because that's meant that we get an idea now of the depravity of Jeffrey Epstein and his, associates. Okay, so before we're going to look at the interviews now, just want to say thank you as always. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Very special thank you to my members. Thank you to those of you who've bought Ko-fis, etc., sent super stickers. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get the banner off and let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this interview. And don't forget to let me know what you think. Hi, Admit. Hi, All Hippie. Hi, David. Yeah, I seem to recall hearing that half of murders are never solved. That's really quite scary, isn't it? It's really quite scary. Now you think of all the people that are missing. Some of the people that are missing will be people who have decided to go missing. Sometimes people do. People do take themselves away, not to kill themselves, but to just start a new life somewhere. I mean, it happens. And, so how many of the people in the world that are missing are those kind of people that have just wanted a new life? Then you've got other people who maybe had an accident, but it hasn't been discovered yet. Or, people who took themselves away to do something to themselves and their bodies haven't been discovered yet. And then you've got the people that were murdered and they've just been hidden really well, buried, thrown in the wilderness somewhere where until somebody stumbles across them. You think it's hard to hide a body. It's really difficult to hide a body. But some people are very successful with it, aren't they? So, I don't know. But anyway, let's have a look. So, what do you think about this conspiracy theory? Is it possible that it's got anything to do with Savannah's interview with them? Is it at all possible? Or is that beyond the realms of possibility? I mean, nothing's beyond the realms of possibility, is it really? But, I think we're sort of running out of ideas really about this case. Let's hope that the authorities have not run out of ideas about this case. They've gone so quiet, so radio silent. You don't hear anything. We're getting no news whatsoever. If you Google the Nancy Guthrie case, the only thing that will come up is expert says this, expert says that, ex-police person says this, ex-FBI investigator says that. It's just all speculation. It's no more relevant, really, than the speculation I'm going to go into now on this video. You know, people saying, all right, they've got their experience in the past, but they still haven't got a bloody clue what's happening in this case. Nobody knows except the task force that are dealing with it. And they're not saying anything. They're not saying zilch. They don't want to, they don't want to divulge any information. They're not even giving out the video of Nancy in the Uber taxi on the way to Annie and Tomato's. They're not releasing that. They're not releasing what she was wearing when she disappeared. We only know because of what Savannah said. Savannah said that she was in her pajamas and barefoot, but we don't know why Savannah said that. How does Savannah know she was in her pajamas and barefoot? Has she actually, is there a video showing Nancy leaving the house? Or is it just Savannah presuming she was in her pajamas because she was in bed at the time, and maybe the slippers were still there by the bed and the shoes were still there? So that's why she's presuming she was barefoot. Otherwise, how do we even know? You know, it's a complete mystery. Now, it's interesting what you say there, old hippie, about the money or gold hidden away, because there has been talk, haven't there, about a locksmith going in there. Like, remember that guy that went in there, and he was from a company that that deal with safes and things like that. So it makes you wonder, did Nancy have a safe somewhere in that house, and somebody knew that she kept a lot of valuables in there, and that's why they targeted her? And then did it all go wrong? They couldn't get into the safe. Maybe they were trying to get the combination out of Nancy, and that's when she, passed away, because they underestimated the strength of her heart or whatever. Maybe that's a possibility. Everything's a possibility at the moment. Nothing is outside the bounds of possibility because we don't know what happened. And that's why I don't think anybody is beyond suspicion either, because until we know who did do it, we can't know who didn't do it, if that makes sense. And of course, Sheriff Nanos has come out and exonerated the family and their spouses. But again, how could you do that? I'm not saying it was anything to do with the family. And what I'm saying is, how can you exonerate everybody or a lot of people before you actually know who did it, unless they've got an idea of who did it and they're just tying up the loose ends? You cannot believe that they've got no idea. This is what's been said, that they have no suspects. It's not that they're tying up loose ends, they just haven't got any. Can they literally have no suspects even after all this time? And that clear picture, I keep looking at this and thinking, I know door cams are deceptive. We had this in the Rachel Marin case. The guy was caught on door cam, but only his profile. And actually, when he was caught, he looked absolutely nothing like it. So you can see how it happens. You just look at that picture and you just think, if you knew that man, you know, I just feel if that was my son there in that picture, even under a balaclava, I would know it was him, not only from that picture, but from you know the his body shape and the way he walks, etc. That we see. Anyway, nobody's come forward, even though there's over $1 million reward. Nobody's come forward, and that is worrying, isn't it? Because you think even with a reward as massive as the reward there is for Nancy for finding Nancy or whoever did whatever they did to her, nobody has come forward. Makes you think nobody's gonna come forward, or will they as time goes on? You know, could be the girlfriend of that person, could be in 6 months' time is no longer his girlfriend because maybe he's cheated on her with someone else or whatever, and then maybe she'll come forward. Or yeah, anyway, okay, let's have a look at this. So you've got to let me know if you can hear it, because you know sometimes the sound doesn't come through. So if we look at this picture, so we've got Virginia here. It just breaks my heart every time I see Virginia. And when you listen to her talk, this girl, you know, a woman, she was 41 when she died. You know, she got into, you know, she was a teenage girl. She'd already had a traumatic childhood, and then she got her head turned by money and glamorous lifestyle. I don't think anyone who judges Virginia, you just have to remember how young she was, and these other girls the same. What sort of 16, 17-year-old girl would not have her head turned by a billionaire offering to fly her to a private island and, saying she was going to meet royalty and, move it. You can't put your older head on a young girl's shoulders. Young girls and boys, young people in general, it's easy to get led astray. Um, so it's quite dangerous to be young. I was thinking this last night when I was driving. There's a part of where I drive when I go and pick up my son from work where it's quite a busy, this part of it is really isolated that I've put that video up, but there's part of it where I go up a high street, I suppose you would say, on the beachfront. And there's loads of people there. So it's like the complete opposite. And a lot of young people, and they're on scooters or they're messing about. There was a guy last night, a young lad, I bet he was about 18, and he's cycling along, no hands, cycling along a busy road that's full of cars, scooters, motorbikes, people, and he's cycling along, showing off, no hands, without his hands on the handlebars. And my heart just stops when I see that. It's like, oh my God, what if he went out of control? He could come under my car, and I've got to live with the fact that, I've run some young lad over. But young people are reckless, aren't they? Young people don't think, if you think about how you used to think when you were young to now, you're probably more cautious. As you get older, you do get more cautious because you see things happen to people, people that you care about. You see them have accidents or, terrible things happen to people. And as the older you get, the more people you lose, really, in a way. It's quite sad, isn't it? But you come to your senses a little bit. Would you ride along on a bicycle without holding onto the handlebars? Probably wouldn't even ride on a bicycle. And it set me off thinking, and I thought, it's quite dangerous being young for various reasons. Because when people are young, not only they get their head turned, like probably Virginia did and all these girls did, by a glamorous lifestyle, meeting famous people. At the time, Virginia really, you just sort of dazzled by the lifestyle. And then sometimes you're not even aware really that you've been abused until later, because you don't think that carefully about things. So, you know, you could have your head turned by a predator like Jeffrey Epstein. Also, young people, of course, they get dark thoughts, don't they, of anxiety, and then they have thoughts of self-deletion. A lot of young people do delete themselves, sadly. They go off to, I don't know, they don't think of how many times when I was young that I've got in a car with someone I didn't even know, giving me, you know, who's offered me a lift home or whatever. Oh, all right then. You know, I won't get in cars with people I know now. It's like I've gone from one extreme to another. You know, so they do reckless things, don't they? Young people do reckless things. They drive too fast, or they drive when they've had a drink or drugs, or they cycle along the road without holding on to the handlebars. And as I was driving down the road and could see it, so there'd be the guy, there was the young lad who wasn't, you know, he was like cycling along, not holding on to the handlebars. Then you've got lads on scooters, like messing around, going in circles in the middle of the road, like playing with their scooters with no lights. And oh God, you're driving down this road and people are just coming out in front of you, young people, like, you know, because it was, of course, you know, just night time. It's quite nice weather and they're all out there sort of doing their thing about 10:30 at night near the beach, having a great time. But, you know, they're putting themselves in danger. Young people put themselves in danger, don't they? And the way that Virginia and these women put themselves in danger when they were young is they got their head turned, like they were dazzled. And, you know, I think you can't judge them for that. When people are so young, you can't judge them the same way because they don't realise what's going on, do they? Anyway, let's have a listen.
This is everything. The only solace for me is that when a group of people who've experienced trauma of this kind come together united against a common enemy, there's a very special bond between us all.
A painful bond shared among these 6 women. See News.
I find it very comforting to be here.
Marika Chartouni, Anushka DeGiorgio, and Rachel K. Benavides sharing their stories about Epstein for the first time on television.
I think the nature of this kind of abuse means that you're conditioned to be silent.
Yeah, that's one thing that's come out of this as well. It's right, you are conditioned to be silent because you feel embarrassed. I mean, the thing is as well, people are looking at these women now and they can't, like if these were sort of all 16, 17-year-old girls sat there talking, people would be nicer to them. But because they're older now, they're talking about what happened 20 odd years ago. I think, and then people judge them as if they were women then. They weren't women then. They were just kids. Kids, you think of anyone you know who's 16, 17, 15, 16, 17, even 18. You know, they think they know it all. They think that I did when I was that age. God, you don't think that you're too young to really understand what, you know, what people's motives are and what, you know, goes on in life. You don't think that. You think you know it all. In fact, it's the opposite, isn't it? When you're young, you think you know everything. Your parents know nothing. Your friends know everything. Like you listen to your friends, you don't listen to your parents. And you just do what you think you're a grown woman or man or whatever, even if people are looking on you as a kid. But when you get older, you realise that when you were that age, actually, you knew very little. You thought you knew it all, though. That's the thing about young people, is they think they know it all, but they don't. And then as you get older, you know you don't know it all, because as you get older, everything becomes a grey area.
Be isolated, secretive, and shameful.
I feel like, you know, it was a big game for him, and we were the pieces of his game.
And you're like, I'm just not going to say anything because that's what he told me to do.
The women all have familiar stories of grooming, promises, and then sexual assault.
Poor Virginia getting upset there. So yeah, like that what girl said, she said, you know, you think you're not going to say anything because that's what he told me to do. And you know, he was the billionaire guy with the private plane flying them all over the world and doing this, that, and the other. So it wouldn't all have been bad. I mean, they had a price to pay for it, you know, the way they had to sleep with these men and what have you. But there'll be a lot of it that they probably really enjoyed, like going on the private plane, going to the parties with the famous people. You know, of course they enjoyed that. Of course they did. And then, you know, the other bits they probably tried to just switch off in their mind from them. But yeah, that was and who were they going to talk to? You know, this is a guy who knows the royal family, who has political connections. He was friend, you know, whatever happened with Bill Clinton and the political sort of connections that he had. Prime ministers from all over the world, you know, all powerful, influential people. Who were these 17-year-old kids gonna tell? Who were they gonna tell? Who would believe them? You know, that's why he picked them. Or Ghislaine, she was like his pimp. She found the girls, a lot of them, didn't she? And she got the girls to find other girls. You know, and this is true. This is what they would have been told to do as well. Find other young girls like you, befriend young girls. And they would have done that as well. And because what else were they going to do? It's horrible, isn't it, really, the whole thing?
I can relate to pretty much every person sitting here next to me.
Virginia Robert Guthrie says Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her first broadcast in court filings that Epstein directed her to also have sex with a number of powerful men, among them Britain's Prince Andrew. He was 17 when this photo was taken with the prince in Maxwell's London townhome next to the bathroom where she says he's sexual.
This photo, oh my God. I mean, this got to be one of the most famous photos in the world, doesn't it? You know, and you can see Virginia, she doesn't look upset there. People would look at that, oh, she doesn't look distressed. No, she's meeting a prince. She's got, you know, she's a 17-year-old girl thinking, oh my God, I'm mixing with royalty. You know, it's like, you can just, she looks happy on that picture. You know, and the only thing that you could say in Andrew's favour, it's not really in his favour, but he wasn't aggressive with her. She says that he was, you know, because some of the men she had to sleep with were actually beat her up. Andrew, at least he wasn't one of those men, but it's not exactly a resounding sort of, oh, well, at least he wasn't, you know, it wasn't violent. You know, he was still, the thing about Andrew is he just thought he was entitled as the Queen's second son or whatever, third son or the Queen's son. He just thought he was entitled to do all these things. He never thought anything was wrong with it. I don't think he even now he understands that there was anything wrong with it, because he would have, I mean, I don't know if anyone can advise Andrew, because it seems like he just does what the hell he wants. But anyone could have advised him and said, look, just hold your hands up and say you just didn't realise at the time that she was only 17, or, you know, I think it's the lies that Andrew's told that has made it even worse for him, because he's never admitted, you know, I've said this before, the British public, and the public in general, there's a lot of things that they'll excuse people for, but lies, no, they won't. If somebody gets caught out in a lie, they sayonara, you know, forget it, it's adios amigo. Your best bet is always to speak the truth, deal with whatever flack comes your way, and hope for the best. But as soon as you start trying to lie like he did, despite this photo, clearly, he should never have lied. He should never have done that interview. Well, he should have done the interview maybe with Emily Maitlis, but he should have told the truth. So he's got nobody to blame but himself and his own entitlement.
Abused her.
What happened? The first time in London, I was so young. Ghislaine woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey.
So don't forget as well, that was where supposedly she said he was really sweaty when they were dancing, and he turned around and said, "Well, I can't sweat. There's something wrong with that theory because I've got this physical condition and I actually can't sweat." I mean, it was laughable, wasn't it? And there's photos of him sweating like a pig. That's disrespectful to pigs, to be honest. Sweating like mad under his arms and everything. Loads of photos of him doing that. But he just piled on lie after lie after lie. And he just, he hoisted himself with his own petard. He deserved everything he got because he's a self-entitled, puffed up toad prig who thinks the public are as thick as he is. And he thought he could get away with it, and he didn't. But having said that, he has got away with it because he's still living in a great big mansion in Sandringham. He's just living in a smaller mansion than he was living in before. Oh my God, oh diddums.
And Ghislaine said, "He's coming back to the house, and I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein." I couldn't believe it.
Virginia says the abuse moved from the bathroom to a bedroom.
He wasn't rude or anything about it. He said, "Thank you," and
Thank you.
some kind of soft sentiments like that, and left. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
She says Prince Andrew abused her 2 more times, once in New York in Epstein's mansion and again at his Virgin Islands estate.
Prince Andrew, of course.
See, why would we disbelieve Virginia, especially now? I don't understand why people wouldn't believe her. She's told her story many times. It's always been the same story. I don't think there's any doubt that what Virginia was saying about Andrew is true, was true. I'm just sorry that she wasn't around to see him lose his title. That would have been some cold comfort, even though it means absolutely nothing really, because he's still got all the privileges. Just because he hasn't got the titles, he's still got money. He's never going to be, sleeping on the street in a sleeping bag, is he? Or no home to go to. He should be in prison. If he was anybody else, if he was my brother, not Charlie Boy's brother, he'd be in prison. Of course he would. He'd be investigated properly. He would end up going to prison. He would be forced to testify against the other perpetrators, the other predators. Why is nobody being held accountable? Honestly, it drives me absolutely mad. And just arresting him and giving him a bit of a scare is not proper punishment, is it?
Denies that this ever happened.
He denies that it ever happened, and he's going to keep denying that it ever happened. But he knows the truth, and I know the truth.
What do you say if people think this about money for you, that you're trying to get money and have got money?
Or law called limitations. Ghislaine Maxwell accountable. The way to get Jeffrey Epstein held accountable is through them saying I'm a liar, which I'm not. So it's called a defamation suit.
Like all others she's named, Prince NBC News.
Oh, Hippie, what I've decided is you need to set up your own YouTube channel so you can then say whatever you want to say that suits what you want to say. Because do you know what? This YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, is not just for you. I do what videos that I want to do on my YouTube channel. If you don't like it, go and watch somebody else's YouTube channel or make your own YouTube channel. I'm going to withdraw your comments because I'll tell you why. Because you just come on just to carp. You've got nothing positive to say. If you've got nothing positive to say, go and create your own YouTube channel. Then you can do what the hell you like. But don't come on my YouTube channel and carp at me. And, think that you're the only, that this YouTube channel is just dedicated to you. It isn't. This video is about Nancy Guthrie, just trying to look back over possible scenarios because we don't know what happened to an 84-year-old woman. We're not bothered about you and what you think. You go and start your own YouTube channel. Don't come on my channel carping constantly, every time. Oh, don't like this or don't like that, or this is boring, or we've heard this before. Well, you know what you can do, don't you? You know what you can do. I'm just sick of it, honestly. I'm done with it, done with it. This is your very last warning. I've told you, start your own YouTube channel, then you can do what the hell you like. But don't come on my YouTube channel constantly carping on about things. What are you doing that's positive? What are you doing that's actually positive in this case? All you keep saying is, oh, she's in Mexico with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. There you go.
Denied that the Duke of York had any form of sexual contact or relationship with Virginia Roberts. Any claim to the contrary is false and without foundation. Maxwell has not been criminally charged and has repeatedly denied the accusations against her.
What does justice look like? She helped.
Yeah, the interview was about 6 years ago, so it's before Ghislaine. Ghislaine, she's a mysterious person, isn't she? She's sort of, I think Ghislaine was just so in love with Epstein, but not only that, not only for love, because the way she looked at him, it always looked to me that she just adored him. I don't know why. I don't know why. Well, money, because of his money. So I think his money gives you power, doesn't it? And Epstein, he was powerful because of his money. But where did his money come from? I think this is still something that we don't really, 1 minute he was a lecturer, and then the next minute he's this billionaire, and he's, was he blackmailing these famous people? Where are the videos? Because I think 100% certain that there are videos from the Epstein Island or whatever, that he would have had bugs put in the rooms, and maybe he was blackmailing these people and that's where he was getting his money from. Or people say he's been, he's been paid by sort of Zionists and things. This whole scandal runs so deep and it's got so many tentacles. And there's Ghislaine. Her father was as dodgy as anything, wasn't he? Robert Maxwell. So Ghislaine has been brought up with dodgy men, really. God knows. Maybe her father was an abuser. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. So she was used to dodgy men. She idolized her father. And he disappeared, didn't he? Mysteriously. Well, he drowned mysteriously off his yacht, another sort of mystery, was that red rum, or what did he, do himself in? And there was big scandals about to break because he'd robbed all the money from the pensioners, the Mirror Group pensioners, etc. So these tentacles, these roots, they go so deep, don't they? That it's not beyond the realms of possibility that this could be connected as well, because I think since the Epstein files have started coming out, it just makes us realise, probably some people already thought about, these things sort of thing. And, there was already talk, wasn't there, about the Illuminati and about, these secret societies and these sort of parties and things like that. There was already talk about it. There's been talk about it for years. But I think since the Epstein files started coming out, I think even people who didn't know anything about that before, and of course, because of social media, so people have got access to much more information than they used to have. So now everybody's aware of it. Like years ago, maybe there'd be a few people aware of it, few people that would look into it, but it probably wasn't, wasn't something that was in normal conversation that you'd sit and talk to them. So because it wasn't on the news, and we only years ago, all we knew was what was on the mainstream news. Now I think people are more aware of things that go on. Hi, Julie. Hi, Irinsky. So, it's like, God, how deep it reminds me of, like, just recently we've seen the Diddy trial. They're just revolting, these people, and the things that they get up to. So you just think, is that what happens when you do sort of come into money, or do well or whatever? Why don't these people do something positive with the money instead of just having freak-offs and peeing into their girlfriend's mouth or whatever? What's wrong with these people? Or abusing kids like Epstein. And when is the whole thing going to come out? So recently we've had Melania, of course, distancing herself from Epstein and saying she never knew him, despite the fact there's millions of photos out there with him and Donald. She said, we just saw each other at parties. I think the day that just reminded me a bit of the Andrew interview. So it's these people, they think the public are still stupid, and the public are not as stupid as they used to be. And stupid's not the right word. They're not as ignorant in the sense of not having the information like they used to. Nowadays, the public have got the information. They make informed decisions. They do their own research. They don't just believe what the mainstream media tells them to believe. So, yeah.
Denied the accusations against her.
What does justice look like to you now?
Justice now is holding accountable the perpetrators that helped him and participated with him, and encouraging more people to come forward so we can try to put this puzzle together and understand how it happened. How did this happen for so long? How did he get away with it?
These are quite.
Oh, poor Virginia. See, she seemed so strong there, didn't she? I mean, of course, she had other problems, didn't she? Her husband. She split up from her husband, and I think that didn't help her mental health. And she was, remember, just before she died, she released those photos, said she'd been in a traffic accident, and she released those photos with black eyes and things, and said, didn't she say she'd nearly died and she only had so long to live? Now you should wonder who was actually releasing. Was that even her that was sending out those tweets or whatever they were? Was somebody else in control of her media? Because then the next minute she's supposedly hung herself. The 1 minute she's on the social media showing photos of her with black eyes, and she's been in this terrible car accident, and her was it a liver she said was failing, and she only had so long to live. And then the next minute, we're getting reports that she's taken her own life by hanging. What the hell happened to Virginia? You know, it's like, who, you know, what? It sort of makes you speechless, really, doesn't it? Because it just doesn't make sense, any of it.
Questions many of these women have asked, especially now after Epstein's suicide in jail, awaiting trial on child sex trafficking and conspiracy charges.
Exactly.
That's all we're asking. Take us serious. We matter. You matter. You matter, and you matter. And for all the girls out there, you all matter too.
Epstein still waiting in the shadows.
Jeffrey thought that we would just look who's still standing.
There's something about incredibly compelling.
Yeah, now I don't know if you caught that girl saying, let's see.
You all matter too.
Yes.
A message to other possible victims of Epstein still waiting in the shadows.
Yeah, so how it was frustrating for them when Epstein did take his own life, if he did, because, yeah, it's sort of like a justice in a way, but he escaped justice, didn't he? He escaped justice. Let's presume that he did do it himself. He decided he wasn't going to spend the rest of his life in prison if we presume that he did do it himself. And so he escaped justice. It must be, I don't know what justice looks like. You know, we talk a lot about justice for this person, justice for that person. But I know it's something, isn't it? But when somebody's already, they can't bring back these girls' sort of naivety or innocence. They can't bring back can't take away the trauma. I mean, it must help for them all to be together like that. It will help if they get financial payouts. Of course it helps. Because, you know, if you've got mental trauma, the last thing you want to be worrying about is how you're going to pay your bills at the end of the month, etc. So if you, at least that's one thing you don't have to worry about. But, you know, what is justice? Not only for these girls, but in other cases, like when murderers are brought to justice, we think, oh yeah, justice for whoever. But is it really justice? I hope they meet their proper justice in the next life. Because whatever justice you give them in this life, even if you give them the death penalty, you know, you can't bring back that person. You know, so justice is a funny thing, isn't it? But I suppose it must help to just know somebody has been held accountable, that somebody is listening to you. You know, that, but when they put themselves in this position to say that, tell their story, they get a lot of hate as well. So they get almost, it's like a double sort of abuse. That's why I suppose it's easier to do it all together like this, where they can at least, you know, at least they believe each other. Do you know what I mean? Even if other people are out there watching, saying, oh, what a load of rubbish, I don't believe what this girl is saying. At least they believe each other and they can support each other. But it didn't help Virginia, did it? Didn't help Virginia. She's not here anymore. What happened to her? God, I would love to know what happened to her. You know, for sure.
He was able to commit suicide. Yeah, it was really upsetting.
They failed us before. Don't fail us again.
Exactly.
That's all we're asking. Take us serious. We matter. You matter. You matter, and you matter. And for all the girls out there, you all matter too.
Yes.
A message to other possible victims of Epstein still waiting in the shadows.
Jeffrey thought that we were disposable and he threw us all away. And look who's still standing.
There's something about seeing the group of women that are raised that is incredibly compelling. This is Virginia's story.
The image itself is powerful, and the words even more powerful.
Yeah, you can see Savannah's full conversation, a special Dateline that is tonight at 10, 9 Central. And by the way, we are going to check in with Savannah in just a little bit and see how she's feeling in our next hour. She has come down with pneumonia, and we're going to talk to a doctor about.
Oh, it's funny that, because when I was watching that interview the first time, I was looking at Savannah and I thought, oh, I wasn't sure she didn't believe these girls. She didn't seem 100%, but now apparently she was coming down with pneumonia, and that's why. So it's just one of the many theories out there is because at the time the Epstein files, the time of Nancy's disappearance, the Epstein files, were being talked about a lot, weren't they? So some people sort of look at that and think, is there a connection? If Nancy was kidnapped because of Savannah. So if we look at all those theories, so you've got the theory, the burglary gone wrong theory. You've got the targeted because of Savannah theory. You've got the targeted by somebody who was close to her theory. You've got the kidnapped for ransom, but then something went wrong theory. God, there's so many bloody theories, but we don't know the Epstein connection theory. Lots of theories in this case of poor Nancy. Lots of theories, but no evidence. I mean, no, I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just ridiculous. Because this all happened on the January the 31st, and here we are. April the 14th, and nothing. No further on. No suspects. No official suspects anyway. We just got YouTubers out there, giving out names and things willy-nilly with no evidence whatsoever. But nothing official. 2 detainments. Twice the SWAT team in the first week or so was out there detaining people, questioning them, and then nothing since then. Not one more detainment since then. I mean, is it, should we still be looking at those people that were detained in the early days of the investigation? Are the police still looking at them? Or have they been cleared now? They haven't been cleared officially, as far as I know. And then we've got the joke sheriff, or in my opinion, the joke sheriff. I definitely think this guy's held up this investigation with his refusal to work with the FBI. Maybe not now, but you know what? We're too far down the line now. There's so many things that were done wrong in the beginning of this investigation. You wonder if they're ever going to recoup the time that was lost and the potential evidence that was lost. The doormat is still there. Oh, it's pointless taking it now because, the whole of Tucson has walked on that doormat now. But, it should have been taken away right from the beginning. Why was the doormat not taken away? Why were the flowers not taken away? Why was the blood trail just sort of left there? It's a joke sheriff and a joke investigation. But ultimately, this woman is missing. Could be your mum, could be your grandma, could be you, could be someone and she's gone, disappeared, poof, abracadabra, beamed up to Starship Enterprise, and no trace of where she's gone that we know of. What has happened to Nancy? People don't disappear into thin air. And we've got this guy, really quite a clear photo of him. Somebody surely knows who this guy is. If they combine it with the, you've got what you can see of the face and that, and then you've got the rucksack and the jacket, and somebody must know who it is. Why are they not speaking out? Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're scared to speak out. But anyway, my opinion, somebody knows. And yeah, day in, day out, we're just waiting for news, aren't we? And then, of course, you've got Annie and Tommaso. You know, they've taken a lot of flack from people because of Ashley Banfield saying that Tommaso was a suspect right back in the early days. People can't shake that feeling off. Also, it makes more sense for them to be suspects because they were the last people to see Nancy. You know, so it's, yeah. Anyway, don't forget to let me know what you think out of all these theories that there are. You know, yeah. Is it ransom, robbery gone wrong, retribution? Maybe a combination of a few things. Is it someone local, someone from Mexico? Was there a safe in the house? Was it, all these different possibilities. So let me know what your opinion is. And thank you for watching, and thank you for caring about Nancy. And for any positive contribution you make to my channel, thank you so much. Please don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to share. And these are free ways you can help my channel. Yeah, hope you all have a good day. Look after yourself, whatever you're doing. Treat yourself. You know, give yourself a manicure, a pedicure. You know, go to the pub and have a beer. Do something nice and relaxing. And I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you so much. Bye.